What's up everyone, Brian the filmmaker here, and today I want to talk about a well-known lens in the Sony community, the Tamron 28-75 f2.8, but I want to talk about it specifically in how it performs shooting fashion shows and behind the scenes at fashion events. I have had the opportunity to shoot on several fashion events with the Tamron 28-75 and its little brother, the Tamron 17-28, over the past month, so I've gotten a very good flavor for its performance. And spoiler alert, it's a great lens with only a few drawbacks in fashion scenarios. So let's get into it. First things first, my background in fashion has been largely shooting with the Sony a7 III and with the Sigma Art Prime lenses, as well as the Pocket 4K with the Rokinon primes, particularly the 35, 50, and 85 primes on both systems. I've been very happy with the results from those lenses when it comes to image quality. The Rokinon lenses have fantastic manual focus and the Sigma lenses have okay focus manually and solid but imperfect autofocus. The Tamron is definitely tilted in favor of the autofocus. The focus by wire manual focus can work okay, but is very fiddly to figure out how to get the results you want. With practice, it'll become something of muscle memory, how much to turn and how fast to turn for the desired results, but it's absolutely not a linear focus and it really shows and is definitely not the most precise focus. That said, the autofocus is stellar. I shot 30 minutes of models walking down a runway with the spot focus on to make sure that the camera didn't grab audience members' faces, and the only time the camera lost focus was when models did their turnaround, but it grabbed focus again almost immediately each time, so I missed zero important moments during that entire 30 minutes. I was insanely impressed because even the Sigmas don't do that good. They usually will lose focus once or twice or be a little bit jerky in their focus pulls, but this was buttery smooth. There's zero chance I could have done a better job as consistently as the Tamron if I was manually focusing. Because of that, it's rare that I'm jumping into manual focus, so it being less than stellar at manual focus isn't the end of the world for me. The big reason I moved from the Sigmas to the Tamrons was I needed zooms, and the Tamrons are the most affordable set of zooms for Sony that have a consistent 2.8 aperture. And in this regard, the Tamron lenses absolutely do not disappoint. They are definitely less expensive than their Sony and Sigma counterparts. Some other features of the lenses I really appreciate are the filter thread size being a consistent 67mm and their lightweight and compact size. The filter size is just nice because with the Sigmas, every filter size was different between the lenses, so switching filters was a pain in any scenario, and especially in a fast-paced scenario like fashion. The size and weight makes a huge difference shooting fashion shows and events. Every bit of weight that can be shaved off the gear really helps to save my body and enables me to be more efficient and mobile while I'm running around getting the behind the scenes at fashion shows. The reach of this lens on the 75mm focal range is fine for most scenarios, although I did find myself wishing for more on the runway. I couldn't shoot as tight as I wanted on the far end of the runway, so it's likely I'll pick up the Tamron 70-180 in the near future to have a lens with that sort of range on longer runways to be able to grab those tighter detail shots. But I was still able to get enough of what I needed from the 28-75 for this particular show, even if more would have been really beneficial. On the wide end, I did end up switching to the 17-28 quite a bit, particularly when I was in tighter spaces and needed to be wider. 28mm just wasn't quite wide enough in tight hallways and crowded rooms full of models and makeup artists. but outside of one or two really tight spaces, the 28-75 stayed on my camera most of the day and covered about 90% of my needs. Because the lens doesn't have stabilization built in, I was rocking my trusty monopod most of the day to get cleaner and more stable imagery. I used to shoot on a monopod most of the time back when I used cameras without IBIS and lenses without stabilization, so this just takes me back to some of those techniques and that style of filmmaking that I'm very familiar with. Although it is possible to get stable shots with good technique throughout the range going handheld, it's a lot easier and more consistent to just keep it on a monopod most of the time when you're moving around. At a fashion shoot I was capturing behind the scenes of, I frequently did go handheld all through the 28-75mm range. I was able to get stable footage, but I had to make sure I was very still and using proper positioning and technique. No run and gun the way you can on a stabilized lens, especially towards the 75mm focal length. But of course we have to ask, how is the image out of this lens? And honestly, it's a great image. I haven't done side-by-side pixel peeping tests between these and the Sigma because I don't think those really matter when it comes to if a lens gets the job done on set. There's no real-world scenario where you're going to be shooting exactly the same object from exactly the same angle and putting them side by side and zooming in to pixel peep. Those tests are absolutely out there if you want to find them in plenty of videos, but I don't find them particularly helpful. In looking at the footage from the events that I shot, it's all incredibly sharp and detailed. I'd have no trouble mixing Sigma and Tamron footage together. I'd be really hard pressed to guess what was the Sigma and what was the Tamron in a shoot where both were utilized. The bokeh is slightly more pleasing on the Sigma lenses, but in practical shoot situations it's almost indiscernible. Almost nobody watching is going to think, man, that out of focus area is a little creamier on this lens than that lens. If that's where your audience is at, there's something seriously wrong with the content of your film. The last related question that I want to address, which is the case with almost all zooms, is do I miss the f1.4 on the Sigma primes when using the Tamron? And for me, the answer is rarely. There's occasionally artsy times I want to blur the hell out of the background. Maybe it's a very ugly background, or maybe there's a very isolated feeling I want to evoke. But most of the time, I'd say 95% of the time, I'd shoot at f2.8 on the Sigma primes anyway to retain that little bit of feeling of my background while still having a pleasing out of focus area. In conclusion, shooting fashion events, the Tamron 28-75 will definitely be in my bag, along with the Tamron 17-28 and eventually the Tamron 70-180. The image quality, lightweight and small build, zoom range, and autofocus make it very easy to work with and highly reliable. For me, at this point in my career, that's really what I'm after from my gear. I hope everyone found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll catch everyone in the next video.